What's up, Dragon Brood? We are back with another deck for Standard, including the new cards from Kamigawa Neon Dynasty, and this is going to be one that a bunch of people want to see, mostly because of a card called Mirror Box out of the new set. I don't think this is going to turn out the way people want, but I think it's actually still pretty solid. But before we get into it, please remember to like this video because that helps so very much on these types of videos when we're trying to just get more deck lists and stuff out into the world for everybody for the start of the season. But more importantly, remember to subscribe, hit the notification bell, and choose all notifications so you don't miss out on a video because I'm going to be putting out multiple decks a day leading up to the release of the set. So, with all that being said, let's go take a look at this Gruul Bard Class deck. Okay, I want to start off by saying one thing. Like, the previous versions of these decks that I built had Jaspera Sentinel and Magda in them. And they were pretty solid for producing the mana whenever we wanted to do what we wanted to do, which is try to play like Eska so we can get the bridge down and do all that stuff. And it was important to have all those multiple colors, right? But when we started looking at the new cards we wanted to add, those cards don't necessarily play well with Eska and with the Jaspera Sentinel Magda combo. So we ended up having to pull all those cards out of that list, and we took it in a little bit of a different direction. So hopefully this all makes sense as we go through it. But starting at the top, we've got 4 Bard Class, and this is sort of, I won't say like what the deck's built around, but it is a very good card if you can get it down for the deck. But I also wanted the deck to be able to function without this. But for a green and a red, all your legendary creatures you play come in and play with the +1/+1 counter on them. You can level it up, and then your stuff costs 1 green, 1 red less, and then you can pay 5, and then every time you play a legendary spell, you get to reveal 2 cards, or exile 2 cards from your library, and you can play them. But yeah, this is kind of what the deck's going to be doing, not a surprise. Now, one of the new cards we did definitely want to play was Goro. It's colorless and a red for a 2/2. You can pay 1 red. Creatures you control have haste until end of turn. And then you can pay 3 and 2 red to create a 5/5 dragon. But you can only do that if you're attacking with a modified creature. Now, the cool part is we have multiple things that are going to be putting counters on stuff, like Bard Class. So it's not going to be too difficult to get a modified creature. And everything having haste is really good. So, yeah, definitely looking forward to Goro on this list. We are playing 3 Ranger Class, just to make sure we have other early plays. This is also one of the few ways we're going to have to draw cards or get ahead. So, want to make sure we have that in here. And it does, again, put counters on stuff, and it makes a 2/2. So, good quality early play. Now, Targnar is not the best card, but I will say from the last few builds I had, I decided to stick with 3 Targnar just because it can be free after you level up a Bard Class. Or if you're at level 3, then it's actually really good because you just got a free look, you got a free body, and you got to look at 2 more cards. So very cool to have that in here. And it does have a little bit of upside when you attack because it can double its power, and it does give everything else +1/+0. So it's not like it's nothing, just not necessarily the card we're excited about, but we're playing 3 of those. Now, as I was finishing this list off, this is one that really bugged me if I was going to play 3 or 4, and I decided to go with 4 Kodama of the West Tree. It's 3 colorless, or 2 colorless and a green for a 3/3. It has reach. Any of your modified creatures have trample, and whenever your modified creatures deal damage, you get to search out a basic land and put it into play. Now, this is good for a few reasons, because again, 1, we do have a bunch of things putting counters on stuff, so we get a bunch of modified creatures. We love that, right? But getting those extra lands out of the way means that, let's say we do level up a Ranger Class or a Bard Class, like we're not going to hit as many lands and we hit more live cards. And that's actually really powerful in here. And it's a 3 mana card. We didn't have much in the 3 slot anyway, so you might as well just go on to 4 of those. And it's okay to play 4 of some legends because Mirror Box. This is the card everybody keeps asking about, like, how do I put it into a deck? What am I going to do with it? The reality is, I don't expect okay, so for those of you who know what Mirror Box is, it's a 3 colorless artifact. The legend rule doesn't apply, meaning you can have multiple copies of the same legend in play. Each legendary creature you control gets +1/+1. I think that's going to be the most relevant part of this card. But each non-token creature you control gets +1/+1 for each other creature you control with the same name. So what this means is that if we do have 2 Kodama of the West trees, they're each 4/4s now because they're getting a benefit from Mirror Box. I debated on how many Mirror Box to play, and I decided to just go with 3 because I think there's going to be a lot of situations where we really don't want a second copy of some things down. We're probably going to be trying to diversify and get more stuff. So fine. And I also didn't want to necessarily have my creatures be at risk if the opponent removes Mirror Box, because we know that Boseiju is going to be in a bunch of lists and stuff like that, right? So I felt that would have been kind of bad to say have like 2 copies of Targnar, 2 copies of Kodama, and then your opponent gets rid of Mirror Box, wipes out your Mirror Box and 2 of your creatures, and now you just got 2 things to block with or whatever. Like, it just felt a little weird. So still going to play it, but just know that there are risks to it, I guess is what I'm saying there. Then I decided we're going to play 3 Tovolar, just because if you get to level up Bard class, it's 1 red, 1 green less, which means you're getting a Tovolar for 1 mana. Can't really argue that. That's good value. And if you have Mirror Box out, Tovolars can pump other Tovolars, which is kind of cute. So that's a thing. Like, weird, but it's a thing that happens. So we'll just keep that in mind when you're playing the deck. Then we have 2 Arlens we decided to play as well. And Arlen is a 2 colorless, red-green, 4 loyalty. It has Daybound, Nightbound. Mostly we're playing it because, again, we can get it cheaply for 2 colorless, and we can make 2 wolves, which if we have Tovolar, it's bonus on the wolves. But it is another way to put a +1/+1 on something. So we can just plus Arlen, go ahead and cast a creature during your opponent's turn, put the counter on it, boom, awesome. But the other thing, too, I like about it is I wanted a few cards that helped us against sweepers. I mean, anybody who follows me on Twitter knows I've been making threads about how many sweepers there are in Standard. And this is another instance where this could be important. So we might just want to be plussing Arlen, kind of preparing for the board to get swept, and then minus Arlen a couple of times. So we put a couple of cards in to kind of help us with that. Then we're playing 2 Eska's Chariots because, well, again, you get it cheaper. And Chariot's already good. A cheaper Chariot's even better. And you can pump Bard class on 3 and then just see what happens after that on 4. You know, there's a few things we could do to get more out of this, but realistically, Chariot's just 2 bodies, which we like, especially if we end up behind for some reason, or even if you're on the draw, it's a quality card to pick up. But once you get moving forward, then it could be pretty powerful, especially if you do decide to make wolves with Arlen and you get a Tovolar and whatever. Like, there's a few different situations where copying a token matters, but mostly we're playing it for the body, and having something post-sweeper is really what we're looking for there. And then the card we couldn't do without, we're playing 4 Helana and Elena partners. I really was on 3 for a long time, but as I started closing out this list, I just went to 4. The reality is this card's very good. There's very few scenarios where I don't want Helana and Elena. I mean, being real, the card's actually very good. And this, along with Goro, kind of gives everything haste in a way. So all your creatures, not only are they getting counters, they're getting to be bigger, faster, and if you have a Bard class leveled up, you get to put a counter on Helana and Elena, which means you now get to make something +3 instead of +2 each turn. Like, so there's a lot of little synergies working together with all these cards, but we are playing 4 of those. And then I decided, because we're not playing the Jaspera Sentinel Magda anymore, I went ahead and moved up and added 3 Kolvari God of Kinship. Now, Kolvari herself is actually pretty good. 2 colorless, green. You get a 2/4. She becomes a 6/6 if you control 3 or more legendary creatures, which of course we have a bunch of legends, so that's awesome. And then you can pay a colorless and a green and tap her to look at the top 4 cards of your library. I almost messed that up. Top 6 cards. So you get to look at the top 6 cards of your library and play or put a legendary creature from there into your hand, which means you can cast it, and that's awesome. So we like that. But it's really about the backside, having the Ring Hearth there to be able to get extra mana, because we kind of go from 2 to 4 in this deck in a lot of ways. Now, granted, we have a couple of things that cost 3, but realistically, the bulk of the deck is at 2 mana and 4 mana. So if we do just have to play the Ringhearth Crest on 2, then the next turn we have access to 4 mana to be able to cast a bunch of our stuff. So it's, as much as I like having Kolvari's front side, it's really the Crest was kind of my motivation for putting it in this list. And then we round out our creature spells with 1 Vorinclex, Monstrous Raider, 4 colorless, green, most of you know what this is, 6/6, haste, trample. If you put counters on your stuff, you get double. If your opponent puts counters on their stuff, they get half. Now again, we have a bunch of things that put counters on stuff, right? Bard class, Arlen, Ranger class, Helena and Elena are also putting counters on things. Great, right? We like that. If we can double our counters, even better. But again, this is one of those cards that post sweeper, being able to drop this down, attack for 6, maybe 8 if you have a leveled up Ranger class or something, maybe more than that if you have a Bard class out, you know. So it's doing a lot of things here. We're just playing one of because it's 6 mana. We don't necessarily want a lot of them, but wanted to at least, again, have a few more outs. Now, as far as lands, we're playing 3 Boseiju because we don't have any real spells. Honestly, like we're playing the enchantments and the creatures, and that's kind of it. So Boseiju actually will let us destroy artifacts and enchantments, or lands, I guess, if we really need to. But that's a big deal. Gives us some options, so we're not stuck, not being able to deal with things. So that's actually really big. So we're playing 3 of those. I will say it is a legendary land, and that is a downside. So if you get multiples in your hand early, it's unfortunate. But at least you can discard it to the channel ability and do something with it. The other benefit, too, is because we're playing legendary things, this ability is going to basically just cost you 1 green, which is cool. It's not a huge discount, but it's something. We are playing 4 Den of the Bugbear just to have more creatures. Again, kind of having some sweeper protection, if you will. 1 Lair of the Hydra, because, again, it's a good card. It scales. We don't hate it. 4 Rockfall Vale, because it's red-green lands. Playing 3 Soku. I haven't got this right yet. Sokinzen, I think. I don't know. Whatever. But either way, we're playing it. Crucible of Defiance. This just lets you make 2 creatures. But again, you can make them at instant speed, which is pretty cool. And it's reduced for the number of legendary creatures we control. Or legendary permanents, I guess, we control. But we have a bunch. So it's a good chance you're going to be using this for just 1 anyway. The rest, we have a bunch of forest and 3 mountains. So yeah, that's the whole deck, but it's a little bit different than the versions we played before. Now, what's funny is I'll tell you, after doing that deck tech, I was cruising around to see if other people already built lists like this, and it turns out Reed Duke has one that's similar. His numbers are a little bit different, and I don't think he plays Golvari. He's got some other stuff going on, but I at least feel good that the decks are at least headed in the right direction. So that's a good sign for you if you want to play this. I will say though, we don't actually again have that Jaspera Sentinel Magda like quick start. So you're almost just going to be looking to just play everything as you get it on turn 2, whatever. We're not trying to save mana. We're not trying to build up treasure and whatnot like we were last time. This time is strictly about getting things on the board. And again, your turns are going to look a lot like, 2 mana thing, 2 mana thing on turn 2 and turn 3 sometimes. But can change depending on what your hand looks like. You can also, again, try to ramp up, try to plus a Bard class, and then play one of your things that's cheap or free behind it. Like, there's a few different lines of play you're going to get early, and you're going to have to try to figure that out, kind of what's the best in each scenario, because it's the early part of the game and you don't really know which way things are going to go on turn 2. So that's going to be the only downside of this deck, but again, there's not a lot of interaction here. You're trying to hit your opponent with raw power, with yours just being better, and hopefully you can run them down. But this is another one that I think a lot of people are going to like. I think this gives you a way to play Mirror Box and kind of hold you in the right space without getting too far out of bounds. Now, I will say, I did consider playing one of each of the new dragons. Atsushi and Kura, I believe, are the green and the red ones. Almost went that way. If you want to, I would probably replace like the Vorinclex and potentially like 1 Tovolar, maybe, if you wanted to play those, just if you wanted something to go over the top or have something to fight sweepers again. But outside of that, there wasn't too much I really considered to put into this list. Now, please let me know down in the comments what you think about this. Were there cards you expected to see in it? Is this a direction that makes sense to you? Like, I don't know. Y'all let me know kind of how this feels, especially all of you that really wanted this type of Mirror Box deck, because I'm curious how you feel if this is the outcome you were looking for. Also, if you'd be so kind, consider joining the channel for as little as 99 cents. We have 3 levels. Check them out down below, because that means a lot. And please, 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 please remember to like this video, share this video if you know somebody who's interested, but most importantly, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and remember to choose all notifications, because we will have multiple videos a day leading up to the release of Kamigawa. So that means you're going to get a whole lot of deck lists. between now and then. But that's all I have for you for now. We'll see you next time.